Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spiritual Journey podcast. My name is Nimish Radia, and I'm your host. I always love starting every episode by saying thank you. I feel so blessed with this podcast, the impact it has. I started it as a passion project, and I named it after my mentor, my friend Sidhu Jeffrey, who left this realm. It has her initials. I feel like it's guided. I get messages every week that people find it when they need it most, and I love that. So if you're a regular listener, welcome back. If you're new, welcome, and let us know what you feel. Feedback's always a blessing. I am an Akashic record reader, Akashic trainer, podcast host, podcast creator, as well as a spiritual coach and mentor. And what I love to do is guide people on their journey. I feel like we're all going through a shift. I get to guide you to you. I guide you to release the layers that you're holding on to and truly understand your light and why you're here. And I feel like we're all going through this transition, and I love what I get to do. I do that over a 12-week period. I have a beautiful mentorship program where I hold your space and really guide you to you. I love what I get to do. If my voice resonates, please reach out, book a discovery call. I'd love you to take you through it. As part of this podcast, I get to introduce some great guests, and I'm excited to have Steve with me here today. Steve, I'd love you to introduce yourself using your own words.
Well, Nimesh, first of all, thanks so much for having me, and really looking forward to our time together. So my name is Steve Farrell. I'm currently the co-founder and executive director of a nonprofit 501c3 called Humanities Team, which was co-founded with Neil Donald Walsh, who we together launched this Humanities Team 23 years ago, actually, in Wilsonville, Oregon. So this is what I've been doing for the last 23 years. Now, prior to that, just to share this, my journey was quite different. I was an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, kind of there at the right place at the right time, and founded two companies. This was in the 1990s, both in the data communications area. This was in the time frame, of course, when the internet was born. And this business was all about really serving larger and mid-sized organizations that were installing these data networks all over the world. And that's what we knew how to do a little bit better than most of the other people and organizations out there. Thus, right place, right time. So this first company with two guys used furniture and a little suite that we could barely afford, go to a $75 million company in a space of 10 years, about 175 people when we sold it to NEC. And then the second one was born inside of that, which went to 75 million in 2 years. It was just a services company. The previous one, an integration company. And this kind of brought me into the American dream from a very different life that I had lived prior to that time, growing up with a single mom and 6 brothers and sisters and all of that. I had I'll call it awakening experience there in that time frame in the mid 90s. The Conversations with God book series was very instrumental in that. This is how I came to know Neil Donald Walsh and co-founded this nonprofit together in 2003. And in short, I lost my passion for growing top line and bottom line, and I'll call it a materialist lifestyle, feeling like it, just a quote, end quote, it's not here. I didn't find it there. And I knew I knew there was a there. I just hadn't found it there. So I lost my passion for business, even with these things going on. I was even the president of the Young Entrepreneurs Organization for Silicon Valley and San Francisco, so surrounded by all of that crowd. But I was clear with what was going on the planet then, and of course we'll get to now. I was not where I was supposed to be. And so I'd left it all, walked away, sold it, moved my family to Boulder, Colorado, and found it in the work that I'm doing now in Humanities Team.
What a powerful story. And, the pivot is really kind of quite profound, and we'll definitely dive into that. But as you said, I always love starting talking about the current energy. For me, I know there's a lot of pain on the planet, and I always send love to wherever it's needed. I have felt this shift coming on the planet for a while in terms of shifting from divine masculine to divine feminine. And I feel like the planet has to shift a lot of what we've created. And I feel the pain, but I also feel um, the transition that needs to happen. And I feel like a lot of people are awakening. A lot of people are shifting to different things. I'm just curious, in your world, what are you seeing differently? What are you seeing shift in the planet? Whatever's going on right now?
Well, I certainly feel it. Um, and just to bring this in, I it was really this shift that I was feeling there in the 90s that was causing me to make these massive shifts in my life. Because even then, it was clear we were not on a path that would support uh, future generations. I've had a wonderful life, but boy, they're beautiful babies and kids and things. And and of course, there are lots of documentaries sharing. We really need to, a shift needs to come in. We need to shift our reality on this planet. And yes, now, boy, this, it goes by different terms. Sometimes people call it an ascension and an awakened way and conscious living and these things. But it's going on. There's definitely an energy from the universe that is supporting this whole awakening process, this whole navigation to a new way of living, both personally and collectively. It's palpable, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are here because they feel it too, and we're on a journey together. You could call it a conscious journey to this whole new way of living on the planet that is sustainable and flourishing both.
Yeah, because it's interesting. I feel like we have a choice, right? We either do the work internally or we let the noise outside consume us, right? And as you say, lots of human labels to ascension, whatever you want to call it. But I feel like nobody's going to miss out, but it's a choice. And some people will get consumed by the noise on the planet, and some people will choose to do the internal work. Is that something you're seeing with the people because obviously you have a wide network? Are you seeing a lot of people shifting in how they see things, maybe doing the work internally, or what are you generally seeing?
Yeah, all of the above. There's a large audience, which I'm sure is here and part of humanity's team, that is on this journey now, that has felt this, that many are even decades in, some newer than that, just years in, but that have felt there's got to be a better way. We
Mm.
clearly haven't found it, both personally and collectively. Otherwise, we would be in being states of joy and have visions of beautiful things for our kids growing up. That's not happening in today's world. And
Mm.
so, what they say is pain will push, right? If we don't first kind of feel into it and proactively begin our journey. So pain is pushing now. And there's a lot of anxiety we see, um, a lot of this fight or flight thing, even sometimes even depression and things. And so it's unfortunate, but it is creating. It's like an agitator and a washer. It's creating it's agitating and causing people to just feel in and think and consider. Which of course is how this process begins. It's also what the journey is. It's very much of an inner journey where we go in and we begin this process of connecting and communing with the one that goes by many names. And of course, what we find during the journey is, oh my God, the one actually consists of everything.
Yeah,
Everybody and the earth and the cosmos and everything is in this one. Right?
yeah, we're all part of a bigger energy for sure, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a beautiful journey and, but a challenging time. And so I think this is why we're here, is to extend this invitation and for people that are newer to the journey, kind of just talk about our own journey. I certainly didn't grow up like this.
Yeah,
I was a altar boy in the Catholic Church, and God was up in the sky somewhere and down below. Boy, I hope I don't go there. And I grew up like most people, so I had to
mm.
find my way.
Wow. I'd love to know more about your journey. I mean, you talk about the humanities team and kind of what you're doing today, but anything you want to share about what your journey and maybe what you're doing today?
Yeah, you bet. So, it really nets down to, well, first of all, we're an educational nonprofit. So we have the largest streaming platform currently for consciousness raising education. It's called Humanities Stream Plus, and then our name is Humanities Team with a Y, humanitiesteam.org. So essentially, what we're doing is we're um, talking about how we can create flourishing individual and collective lives. That's our whole focus, is shifting the reality of the planet to flourishing individual lives, personal lives, and collective lives. And it's really not a. It sounds like, oh, how would you do that, right? From today's world, we were just talking about the energy in today's world, but it turns out, from our perspective, Namish, that there just are two false beliefs or myths that are the problem here from our perspective. You could go to more than that as you get down into minutia, but one is just that the one that goes by many names, that we don't see this just beautiful, loving, guiding, supporting, and we can fall into some real mud puddles, even of like, judging and punishing things. We don't see this magnificent uh, one, universe, life, God, divine. So that's one root cause, we believe, that's messing up our modern day lives. The second one is that even though people like Albert Einstein in the latter years of his life said the greatest illusion in the world, it's the illusion of separation.
Hmm.
And of course, today with modern quantum physics, we're hearing all over the place, oh, the science is affirming, they use the word entanglement, right? Everything's entangled, there's no physical connection, but we're deeply interconnected and interrelated, and we affect each other and so on. And yet, okay, with these two things, we're not living into those two truths, that it's a loving, supportive, guiding, thoughtful, caring, providing, you know, universe slash divine, and that we're deeply a part of all of it. And from our perspective, as we've spent 23 years with this, is, it sounds interesting, is there's a causal factor. And if these two teachings were misspelled, if we push these myths out of the way and we started simply living into these two things, that we would actually individually have flourishing lives and we create a flourishing planet. So that's our whole focus in Humanities Team.
It's interesting, right? I mean, I've always believed there is, we're all part of one universe, right? One, our light is all connected, and trying to do a meditation, I'll always kind of connect us all to that light. But I still feel like our role in that light, because then it'd be easy to kind of say, well, you know what, there's only one light, we're all part of it and all the rest of it, and you kind of dissolve yourself of that personal responsibility. But I do feel that our soul's here for a journey in terms of learning, in terms of expanding. I love the phrase pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, right? So I feel like we've chosen lives where we are meant to learn, we are meant to expand, we are meant to, in some way come back to oneness, right? But I wonder what your take on that is in terms of, for me, for example, religion has a role to play, it gives us the guidelines, it gives us the rule. But our spiritual journey almost kind of surpasses the religion, because our soul could have come back in multiple religions, right? But our spiritual journey is more about kind of releasing karma that we brought into, more about expansion at a soul level. I wonder what your take on the difference between kind of, I don't want to call it a religion, but kind of the rules based over, what is our spiritual, what is our soul here to experience?
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
do we experience pain, and how does it serve us, right?
right. Yeah. So, such a great conversation. Uh, so, here's what I believe is, and some of this I think is kind of is pretty common thought. So that we come from the light and we return to the light, first of all, as a basis. So then what are we doing here? So I think the simplicity of it, Namesh, is that we are to, and this is getting at what's our role. If it's just there's this loving, magnificent, caring, guiding, what the heck are we doing? If the one is all of that. So, and here's the beauty is the way she expresses that, or he, we can use either gender because there is no gender, of course, is through us. That we are actually, she is expressing through us. And the whole invitation, which I didn't understand at all growing up, was that I'm actually here because it wasn't enough for me to, in the before and after, I know there's nothing but love and perfect light and perfect this and what's a candle in the sun? It's like, this is like, gets old here. I'm just a candle in this, everything is. And so I wanted to be an expression of that. I have a unique expression, just like you do. Thank God you created this podcast. So
Yeah.
where we recall, we went in and okay, got it. And I know you've got the same kind of history. You're very successful in business and so on. But no, there was this calling of, no, I'm going to go be this expression of light with my podcast. And it's so authentic, which is why you have this large following. Me, leaving and with Neil starting Humanity's Team, creating this invitation to my own expression of the light. And of course, this is when I say I found it. That's it. What I found was, oh my God, it wasn't a private jet. It was this lifestyle where I'm communing with the one. I found my own individual expression of the light. I'm inviting people to it. That's what we're doing here, of course, as people know, is
100%.
everybody, and when they go within, they're getting in touch with that beautiful expression of the light that they are. And we go in so many different directions. It's like white is all of many colors. Well, we're all the colors, all of us here talking and listening. So that's what I believe. And then here's the interesting thing is when I talk about this simplicity of it, these two myths, and we just need to push them out of the way. Boy, go back and look at Buddha's life, or go back and look at Jesus's life. Do the homework, research what they embodied. As it turns out, these two myths were nowhere in there. I'm one with God and one with you and one with life, or oneness was the principal thing in Buddhism, as we know, right? And it was all, middle way and beauty and the parables that say, you made all these mistakes, but you come back and you're welcomed in. You're just the massive hug, right? Their whole lives were these teachings that I'm talking about. So we're simply trying to push some of these false teachings and myths out of the way, saying they didn't teach that. Science isn't affirming that, right? So we kind of look at it that way.
It's interesting because I'll always, it's like if someone has got a different belief to me, I'm like, okay, that's fine. It doesn't trigger me, doesn't bother me because that's their truth, right? And I'm like, that's fine. So I want to go back to the beginning of your journey. It's like people always say to me when I left the corporate world, "Oh, you were so brave," and I don't see it that way at all. I got to a point where I didn't belong in that space, so I left. That wasn't. But your pivot, I guess, in many ways was much younger, and maybe in some ways even more extreme. I'm just curious, what was that journey like? You obviously you were very successful at a young age. You were creating companies and selling them off, and doing financially very well, being seen as somebody up and coming, and being part of that revolution that was happening at the time. And you pivoted in a totally different direction. How did that feel, and what was the nudges you received at the time?
Yeah, well, of course, as we know, boy, life is such a precious thing, isn't it? What we decide to do with our life, you talk about precious or a treasure chest, there it is. What are we going to do with this life? And I really got in touch there in the 90s with that, boy, at the end of my life, if I keep doing the serial entrepreneur thing and going, which the venture capital one in particular was inviting me to go on board, Steve, with this experience of the two. And, you could really benefit and be part of other births of great companies and all of this stuff. But I thought, at the end of my life, wow, if this is it, and I'm enriching shareholders, myself as the number one shareholder, with what's going on in today's world, which was very evident even in the 1990s. I was like, that's a kid's game. Man, I am just playing some kid's game is what I'm doing. Now, was it hard? Yeah, it was hard. It was hard. I had a lot of respect there among many, including some key people in Silicon Valley even today. They thought I kind of lost my mind, where I was going to pivot in this direction of deeply spiritual. But the way that was articulated to me, and some of them still, I think I hold them in a dear friend space as they hold me in that dear friend space, was that Steve, you're wise enough to where it seems like you're going to probably be okay somehow on this journey. We're worried about you, to be honest, because you're just saying I'm walking away from all of it. Not like St. Francis, where with no clothes and so on, but you're boy, you're jumping off a cliff here, man. And yet you seem like you kind of have the faculties. Somehow you're going to steer your ship here, okay? It was hard losing those friendships that that were earned over time, and just starting. I'm right back at the beginning, boy. When I with Neil launched this in Wilsonville, Oregon. Who is Steve Farrell? What is he doing here? Right. I'm back at the very beginning where people don't know me, and you've got to develop trust in things. So I don't want to say it wasn't a challenging time. It was a challenging time. Going through that pivot and having so many, really losing family, even family support in many cases, and friends and things. But as I go back to life is such a treasured thing, I knew, boy, at the end of my life, I will look myself in the mirror, and even if this falls flat, I will know I was true to myself. And is there anything more important than that? So that's what was steering my ship. And I was getting guidance of course, your whole work is how guided we are and supported and these things, which I was feeling. So I knew I was gonna be fine.
Wow. I mean, I love the phrase, you don't lose people. God hears the voices they have about the conversation they have about you behind your back, and they clears your path. So I mean, I've lost is maybe the wrong word, but yeah, I've lost a lot of people along the way, and I don't actually see it as losing, if that makes sense. Because as we shift, as our energy, our vibration grows, we outgrow some people, or we just go different ways, right? Was there ever any point you were kind of doubting your journey and kind of almost going back to the corporate way? Was there ever any doubt in your mind that, well, hold on, maybe I should carry on the path I was on before?
Yeah, no, honestly, there was not. There were certainly moments of this thing is very close to hitting the cliff's wall. So it might not end well. So I've certainly had that happen some number of times over all these years, but no, never that I had made the wrong decision. It's actually just the opposite now, Namish, because we're saying, boy, it's so challenging, and you even have depression and these things and myths that people believe in. Where my energy is I get up every day is, again, I see these babies, these kids. I have two young adults of my own, 21 and 23, and my energy is, boy, what are the things we're going to do today that are going to uplift, that are going to open eyes, that are going to create awakening, that are going to support the conscious journey? Every day. And even into weekends, my wife supports me in this, where we're still finding our time for sure to relax and walk in nature and walk the dog and so on. But what can we put into this day? That's going to support what's really badly needed in today's world.
Yeah, I mean, it's an evolving time. Actually, it's interesting you talk about your kids. I feel for the next generation, I feel like we chose to clear a lot of ancestral energy and vibration to make it easier in some ways for the next generation to create a new beginning. But I feel they're under a different level of pressure than maybe we were. I'm just curious, from a parenting perspective, how do you make sure they stay grounded? How do you make sure that they're their own individuals and limited with programming so they can be who they're meant to be? What have you done there to ensure that they shine their light uniquely in their own way.
Yeah, boy, there's a story I can tell, which is a very fresh story. It's actually just from this last weekend.
Beautiful.
My two young adults were actually both adopted at birth from birth moms that were 19 and who believed, abortion would have made it much easier, but they didn't believe in that and wanted to give a life to their babies. My oldest, Dylan, who's turning 24, had never met his birth mom.
Oh, wow.
Uh, she's reached out over the years and sent pictures, and but he'd never met her, and he's turning 24. And so this past weekend, Stephanie and I, my wife and I, went back to Las Vegas, where Dylan was born, and had a big, long brunch with Lindsay, his birth mom, who met him for the first time, and who shared the story of, Dylan, I've thought of you every day since you were born, and I'm just meeting you now. And I want you to know, those first years after I gave you up, I went through a real depression. It was very hard for me, Dylan, because I knew what a special young man you were. And boy, just this love fest happened.
Got
where
goosebumps. Beautiful.
so yeah, I mean, you can't be loved too much, is what we've told them,
Yeah.
Dylan. I mean, this whole birth family, they love you to pieces, and I mean, does anything get better than that?
Wow. And I'm just curious, what was Dylan's reaction? I mean, I don't think I can't even imagine what that would be like. I mean, that's just
Oh, I
wow.
I was I don't tear up easy. I was
Yeah,
tearing up. In fact,
I'm
I
sure.
told my partners and colleagues in the humanities team about this, and I didn't think it was going to make me emotional, but it did. And to a young woman to do that, the financial challenge, the depression of years, thinking about him every day, but no, he wasn't ready. Going 24 years before you even
Mm.
look at this. Unfortunately, Stephanie and I love him to pieces. He has a great home and a great life, and she was just, oh my God, I gave you just the perfect parent. I mean, it was a love fest, and
Wow.
it was a long trip. You'd go into, we're not Las Vegas people, going there and spending 2 days, and but it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life.
Wow. Feels like a magic moment for sure. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Such a beautiful, there's so much magic out there. Look, I acknowledge there's pain on the planet too, but it's just, I feel for all of us. And I'm sure there's people listening saying, well, you don't understand what I'm going through and all that. And it's just, I get it. There's a lot of pain right now, but I also feel whatever we look for expands, right? So if we want to see magic in our life, whatever that magic may be, spending a 10-minute walking in nature and just feeling connection to nature and walking barefoot on grass, there's magic around us all the time if we're open to it, right?
Oh boy, there's so much magic, so much guidance and support, and this is why people put terms like ascension together. The universe is indeed holding this planet right now. But by the way, for people that maybe mediumship and near-death experience, if they're new to that, we're a nonprofit. We have lots of free programs. You'll see them on humanitiesteam.org with the top mediums, James Von Prague, who is even on television, and other just top mediums and near-death experiencers. Dr. Eben Alexander, who's well regarded in academia and in science, is one of them. There are many. And a part of this journey is really understanding there's the physical, but we have, even during this program, have talked, Nimesh, about the before and after, the
Yeah.
non-physical, which is very present. And that becomes part of this journey too, where we're reaching out to loved ones and guides and angels and things, which I know is part of your program. And so there's clarity in the universe that this planet is going through a really tough time, which is why, boy, you've got highly evolved beings, angels, archangels, guides, the divine herself, Jesus, Buddha, on and on, Abraham, Moses, that are holding this planet right now. And that's the palpable energy. What is this? I'm feeling an energy. What is this? Well, that's what it is there is from the non-physical realm, there's a great deal of support. And when we get out, like you say, in nature and just get out and we look at the stars, or we walk bare feet in the grass and things, we can get just into hyper experiences of this that'll help slingshot us, in this direction that we want to go.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, look, like I said earlier, we've chosen, our soul has chosen a life which may include some pain, and you know, um, it's really about understanding what your soul chose, and then choosing what you want to focus on, right? I know sometimes I feel like I make it sound easy, and I get it is, I know it isn't, but it's also, I feel like any soul that's here right now, it is a blessing because the planet's going through a shift that it's never been through before, and we're here for a reason.
Yeah, let me, pain and challenges that let's do kind of go into that, because
Sure.
this is not some big Disneyland merry-go-round thing.
No, it's definitely
I
not.
certainly don't want to portray it that way.
Yeah.
And we've had, oh boy, just to tell one brief story. I live in a beautiful home, because I came from Silicon Valley. I could afford to buy that home. But you go back 15 years, and oh boy, people were calling me Job back then. Now, why would they call me Job?
Yeah.
Because, wow, we had such a massive challenge we had to get through. Our home, it turned out, had mold and foma in it. My wife and my son, two of the four, have the gene type that can eliminate these kinds of toxins in their bodies. And so their physical and emotional health just went right off a cliff. We had to move out. They brought cranes into the house it was
Wow.
incredibly expensive. I mean, we went through, oh boy, such a tough time. And by the way, that I don't have to go back that far. There are plenty of challenges even now going on. It's
Mm.
just that now part of this journey is as our eyes open, what we're calling awakening is this, this thing I was bringing in, this little example of coming from the light, returning to the light. Well, what's our invitation here now? To be the light is to, even in these challenges, some financial and different things, but I see, one, I'm going to get through it. There's light, absolutely. Two, while I'm in this, there are lots of people that are really challenged in fear states and things. I did something called Sip of the Divine this past weekend, where you take just 3 minutes, so anybody can do this. And in the 3 minutes, you just quiet yourself. You go into the stillness, you go within, and you say to the divine, is there anything, what do I need to know now? And just give it 3 minutes. What do I need to know now? Now, what came to me in a huge way was, Steve, what you need to know now is there are people that are enormously challenged around you, including that you talk to probably even here now during this broadcast. And create a welcoming, thoughtful, caring space just where that loudness, that reactivity is out there. It's not in here. Just so that, because that's the start of a journey. Just be aware that there are great challenges and fear states and things out there. And I experienced them myself. And I went, this was a years long process to get our home. We had to move out for 9 months and rework the home and so on. And again, I haven't had a paycheck since 1999, only just little things. So of course, with, when you look at the stock market and things, there've been some real walk across the desert moments. But we just stay, this is the conscious journey, is we stay focused on, my invitation is to, in hardship, stay in my daily practices, stay in my rituals, be out in nature, maintain, the balance and the being state that are important, and then do your work. Because that's why you're here, is to do, like here, this is doing this work where we just simply share our stories.
I love it. I love it. And such a powerful, I mean, I ask that to my guys all the time. What do you want me to know now? What do I need to know? And it's just changing the question we ask ourselves is so powerful. Increases our awareness to who we are, and then we have to accept. So, how is this serving me? What do I need to know now? And the 3 minute, I love the 3 minute part, because how often do we ask a question and we don't actually give it time? We don't get an answer straight away. We don't get the answer that we want, or we don't come in the way that we want it to, and we get frustrated. And it's just like, well, no, You ask a question, let the answer come through when it's meant to, right? In whatever form. And it may not come in the 3 minutes, by the way, but it may come the day after. It may come listening to a podcast. It may come anyway, and it's just. But yeah, I love the journey. I love what I get to do. So I'd love for you to share more about humanities. Kind of, what's the purpose? What do you do? I know you've talked a bit about it, about kind of some of the people that people can connect with and what's available, but just give us a summary as to what's your mission?
Yeah, you bet. So our mission is just very simply to create these flourishing individual lives and a collective here on the earth, flourishing lives by very simply moving out of the way uh, these false teachings, I'll call them, or myths that one, there's anything but benevolence, just beauty, grace, love, peace, guidance, support that is the divine, that is the universe, and two, that there is no such thing as separation. That there actually is, and when you look at, by the way, if you go and Google spiritual literacy, it says there is an underlying unity and oneness. Go. I invite listeners to go check that out. There's an underlying unity and oneness. Science is again affirming this. We're all deeply entangled in things. Now, once if you decide those things are true, and then that's just the start. As you kind of do the research, and then there's some awareness, and then you have to make the big decision. We could go back to those in our lives when that happened. Of okay, now this is true for me. And once you decide something's true for you, like these two things, and then you start, of course, living into those truths. Boy, it's like Wizard of Oz. When you click your heels, that's a whole different life where you start living into this truth of you. There's a benevolent one, that has my back, guiding me, supporting me, and I'm a part of it. Okay, now, wow, that's you. I'm unbounded. If I'm a part of it, I'm unbounded. If I'm a part of it, I have everlasting life. This is just a chapter, right? So there's some massive things here that happen. So humanities team is just supportive of this environment and the best practice teachings that take you there. A lot of science. So Greg Braden has currently 5 master classes. Nassim Harriman, a physicist, has a program with Greg Braden. Bruce Lipton has several programs, who's a biologist. Lynn McTaggart out of London has a program. And they come on to our programs quite frequently. And then spiritualists, of course, Neil Donald Walsh and Michael Bernard Beckwith, and then in the near-death experience and mediumship, I mentioned James von Prague, but Suzanne Giesman and Karen Noe. Wayne Dyer's family is quite active with us, with their programs. There's an incredible story that we won't have time to get into here now regarding Wayne and how he's active in today's world, which his family is out talking about and providing support to people that were Wayne's original teachings. So we created this whole, you could call it, a digital library, but it's really more of a community or a movement, a community where we're all walking each other home with having conversations like this one, where we're just supporting each other from science, from spirituality, from embodied practices, from conscious business, all of these things. And it's a global movement. We were given a download years ago that in 2040, which is only 14 years from now, that there would be a turning point, a shift, a tipping point that would happen. Which means 8 to 10% that's about 800 million people, 14 years from now, living into this. So and people that come in not only are getting classes, but they're providing the fuel for this movement through their $299 annual membership or stewardship. So yeah, it's a movement, it's a community, it's a digital library, and it's about just creating flourishing lives for ourselves, just what's in it for me. And then, as we know, what spirituality says is it's an overflowing process. So what happens to me, is that whole pebble in the pond thing of my vibration raises and as I'm getting it, my being state goes there. Everybody around me, that listens to me, that's with me, And of course, there's also work behind that that shows once you go into these very high vibration states, Jesus, Buddha, you've got tens of millions of people that are going to be uplifted, right? So yeah, it's all individual and collective flourishing that is our focus.
I love it. And, I talk a lot about the energy we're moving into is much more about community than individuals. I feel like Divine Masculine was all about the individual egos, people who put on pedestals, and I feel like we're entering into a time where collaborations, communities are so much more important. So yeah, I'm really glad you talk about communities. So I'm sure there's people listening that kind of maybe even sort of triggered by this sort of conversation. That maybe they're going through really difficult times, and they're listening to us and saying, "Well, these guys don't get it." They talk this kind of oneness, and there's a and I'm sure if they listen to this, they've felt energies and vibrations around them, they've felt that support, but at the same time, they kind of feel isolated, alone, and like we don't understand them. We live in a different world. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say, I understand that because I lived in that world myself, and would have said, oh, that's very new age and I don't have time for that and so on. So I totally understand that. And so these belief systems, that underlie our life, are huge. I would say to that person, start with just how's it working for me now, where I'm on the outside like that. Do I wake up and do I spring out of bed? Does it feel good? Do I feel like I'm pointed in the right direction? Are my kids proud of me? Is my family good? Just start with those kinds of questions. Is it really working for me now?
Mm.
So this isn't about us going, with loincloths into caves or something. This actually starts with just really uplifting our personal life and our family and just creating a very loving, thoughtful, caring environment. Yes, with all the challenges of daily life, but it starts with, we don't throw a pebble into the pond that affects the collective until we get there. So it's starting with uplifting ourselves and connecting and communing. And I know this is the whole basis for this program because we did it together before we came on this program. Boy, you'll find it. You will find. So that's what I would invite people to do. Just sit really in your own life and how it's working. And would you want to take some steps and try some things that maybe are going to be very uplifting and very supportive, and then just keep going. Because my experience with this, when I went through my own journey, and it's not a past tense. This is an active journey for all of us. It's an ascending staircase.
Yeah.
We're all on the journey. I'm on the journey myself now. But the reason you keep climbing that ascending staircase is you go, wow, this feels good. I like this. This is adding to my life. And then I take the next step up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say to those people too that, this is a phase and, do something to start to shift. It's like, it's easy to kind of get lost in the darkness and kind of look like there is nothing. But if you start to take one step in, like doing that 3-minute exercise that Steve talked about, just listening to your vibrations and energies around you, spending 10 minutes in nature, just start doing something consistently. And, that may set a course in motion that starts to shift things, follow up what Steve's talking about in terms of, looking at humanities and what they do, and if there's any free support there. And I feel like there's a lot of support available for the planet. Steve was talking about earlier where, I feel like I agree. I feel like there's more higher beings available to us now. There's more support around the planet than ever before. I feel it all every day. There's a pressure to it too. There's a definite energy and a vibration. There's sometimes draining when you feel what the planet's going through. But if we can tap into that support, and you do that by meditation, you do that by asking those questions, maybe you'll start to feel a shift.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you well, and I just and here's the thing to turn that around is my dad did not find his way into this before he passed, and then I've learned to connect with the other side, and there's I don't know that the term regret is what they call it from the non-physical realm, but there's a sense of some participation in some things that didn't happen. And I know there's a sense of I wish it had happened, especially where it maybe created some challenges for some of his kids. So here's the thing: is before we have free will, and we can make any decision we want. I keep extending this invitation because I think my dad, if he could do it over again, maybe would have done some different things. He probably would have gone through an awakening experience and become conscious. That didn't happen. He was very strong and wise, and I feel his strength from the other side. But I think there were some things missing in his life. That's what I get from him, that he would want different now. And so that just, remember the Stephen Covey habit number 2, begin with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
So that's the one we could sit with too, listeners, is there maybe if they're having a different lifestyle now, is this taking us where we want to go? Because this is what we're holding up. I should mention, I'll just hold up, this is a book I wrote called The Inner Way, and it's free on Kindle. So
Nice.
We're a nonprofit also. Humanities Team is a nonprofit. It's called The Inner Way, Reclaim the Truth of Who You Are and Why You're Here. And the reason I wrote this book, and you can go to Amazon or bookstores, and again, free on Kindle, and then it's $10.99, I think, for the
And that's free on Kindle globally, right? It's available everywhere.
Totally, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and the reason that I wrote it is because we, when conversations like this, Nimish, people would say that's very appealing, but the step by step, that ascending staircase with all of your friends and family and these challenges, I'm a little worried about that. I kind of have a toe in the water. I don't know. You're telling me dive in. I don't know. Well, that's why I wrote this book. It's just we're kind of holding hands, going through the whole journey that I went through from altar boy Catholic Church. I'm looking up in the sky and hoping I'll go up there, and looking down in the earth, and I hope I don't go down there.
Yeah.
How did I get from there to here? And this is really a step by step with all of the daily practices and rituals and things in there, so that you can at least examine my tool sets and kind of understand from my perspective how this thing worked, and hoping then that maybe there was a tool or two in there that people might say, oh, that could be useful to me too.
Love it. So I will include the link in the show notes. And it's interesting when you talk about up there and down there, and this is probably a conversation for another episode, but I'm not sure there is a down there and up there.
Right,
I feel like the soul goes through its own journey, right? And it's like,
right.
Who decides what's up and down there?
Absolutely right. Yeah, this is the whole magnificent, loving, guiding, supporting. No, there isn't a down there. In my conception, and also working with the NDEs and mediums, the way it works is it's just all turned around, where at the end of our life, we say, oh, I could have done this and this and this. And the divine said, yeah, but look what you did do. Did this and this and that.
It's karma, right? It's karma. You just,
right.
But the soul carries on. The soul continues. It's not like a, but it's just, right. It's an interesting paradigm that we taught in this planet, right?
It is. Yeah, it is. There's a lot we can open our eyes to a lot if we want to take the time. And that's kind of what we're talking about, a lot of that here right now.
I love it. So Steve, as we kind of get near the end of the episode, what's next for you? What are you focused on moving forward? What do you think is coming next for you? And any final bits of wisdom you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah. So what's next for me? One, Humanities Team is now, with these troubling times, which we've certainly talked about, we're doing live free summits now almost monthly. So there's one on near-death experience in a couple of weeks, and then there's one on manifesting miracles at the end of April. Incidentally, on manifesting miracles, that's not vision board and mantras and things. This is more this path that we've talked about, and I know this has been true for you too, Nimesh, is once we come into that alignment, attunement, and living into what I'm going to call our higher self, which is that soul space, boy, you just watch the miracles and synchronicities come. Still the challenges and things. It doesn't, but the resources that are needed and these things. So we're doing lots of live summits where we come in live we build a studio in this home. And then we launch, master classes it starts with a free program. And then there's this other one that comes into Humanity Stream Plus, which has a monthly price and an annual. We're doing, those are 1-for-1s. So, because there are a lot of people in the world that can't afford like $299 a year. So when you become a steward and join us, you immediately trigger a free program for somebody out in the world, which is kind of cool. So it's just big, this 2040 thing that we were given. Wow, that's talking about a big one. What are you kidding me? 800 million people in 14 years. So that's what's next, is just reach, impact, getting out there, inviting people to come in and be stewards, members with us, partners, colleagues, to create this world that is so necessary right now.
I love it. I love it. And any final bits of wisdom that you want to share before we
Yeah,
close?
the final bit of wisdom, which kind of ties to these themes that we're coming to, is boy, I mean, I hope people know, and if they don't, that they can find their way into the knowing of how incredibly loved they are. They are indeed offspring of the Most High, of the divine, of the universe, and they are that. They are that. I mean, which is to say, my science friends go a step further with it and say, "So, Steve, you know what that means? That means the universe doesn't exist without you. You are a part of this unbounded, everlasting, and there's no universe without you." This is all true, and of course, most of us don't walk around with that straight posture of knowing, my God, I am offspring of the Most High. So that's the most important thing, is if we can find our way into that truth, which it is a truth, that kind of sets the way, then, points us straight into this life that we're talking about.
I love it. I love it. And I'll always say, anyone that's here is needed and wanted and loved. And you may not always feel it, but if you do open your heart to, you may not have people in this realm right now humanly, but if you open your heart up, there is energies and vibrations around you that do love you unconditionally. It's just may not look in the way you expect. So we've loved that conversation. I'm sure Karen talking for hours. But thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And sending everyone love and light. Steve, I'm going to hand over to you to say a final word before we close.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, Nimesh, and viewers and listeners. Thanks for being here. And I think years ago, when things were, I'm going to call it maybe a little more smooth in the world, people maybe would dismiss this as sort of a lower priority. Honestly, I believe this conversation is right at the top. It's 1, 2, and 3 in priority order. I really think this is important right now, and invite people to this program. Clearly is taking people there. Humanities team is taking people there. There are a lot of good organizations, and just become stewards with us. Let's do this.
I love it. I love it. So I'll include your details in the show notes. Please do reach out to Steve and team if you have any questions, and sending everyone love and light. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye for now.